Today I want to discuss trends in divorce and family separation. When and who divorces, the way we describe divorce in this country has to do with the divorce rate, which is the demographic term for the number of people out of 1,000 who divorce in any one year. However, the divorce rate is really higher in western and southern states and much lower in the Northeast and the Midwest. And here's a copy of some of the national divorce statistics. They are, as you can see on the chart, the divorce rates are higher in places like Wyoming and Nevada. Those places are more spread out, have less people, lower in places like Hawaii and Wisconsin. When we measure the differences in measurement, the estimate is the demographic term for the portion of marriages that eventually end up in divorce before the death of one spouse. But this rate is not time specific. It only refers to married individuals and not to everybody else. So the divorce estimates track marriages across the lifetime, whereas the divorce rate looks at divorces in any given year. And so when we put these in societal context, we have to look at the way in which society has changed and how divorce has changed in that context. No-fault divorce was the law that made it easy for people to get a divorce. It didn't matter why you wanted to get divorced. That changed everything. That gave couples opportunities to get divorced, and it removed all the barriers for divorce. So it made it so much easier. And as a result of that, a lot of divorces increased because people had more opportunities to decide if they wanted to get divorced. And women also had more opportunities. As more women got more opportunities, then they were able to get divorced. Married Americans under the age of 25 are far more likely to divorce than older Americans, right? The divorce rate for older couples is still low, but it's rising. That's referred to as the grain of the divorce. And older spouses are less likely than younger spouses to end a marriage that's low quality. And that's just because they're older, they look at it differently. Divorce is currently most common amongst the least educated Americans and least common amongst those who are more educated, probably maybe because they understand what it means to be married in the context of some of the economic and societal benefits that come from being married. There are differences by race and ethnicity in terms of those who end divorces. As you can see, African Americans and Latino Americans have the highest incidence of ending divorces compared to all groups and even white Americans. Same-sex divorce, there's a lot of controversy over same-sex marriages. They're now just really finding out what's happening with sexual orientation and how that plays out, but they have marriage-like relationships. What we see is that people are marrying over time. They continue to get married. The marriage metabolism is the movement of people into a population through multiple marriages. Just as divorce doesn't seem to scare Americans away, so does marriage. So the re-divorce is a term which just describes the fact that people are getting remarried. And so when we think about this whole process of what happens when people get divorced, there's a time of divorce, there are different phases, there's the aftermath. And these are three different ways to think about it. The time of divorce has to do with when people get divorced, right? So the median duration from marriage to divorce is a demographic calculation representing the length of time by which half of the married couples have already divorced, right? And so here, if you look at this chart, it's done by your educational attainment. So you see that in terms of from years start to first marriage to divorce, high school dropouts, looks like they stay in marriages longer. Those who stay in marriages the least are college dropouts. So there's a selection effect. The selection effects just basically means that some people are more predisposed to getting divorced because of things that were part of their, they had more factors, which mean that they were more likely to divorce before they even got married, right? The intergenerational transmission of divorce is the term referring to the fact that kids whose parents got divorced have a higher incidence of also getting divorced. And then there are some family factors that also undermine marriage. Cohabitation, people may feel like cohabitation is a factor which leads to greater incidence of staying married. Not true. People who cohabitate are less likely to get married. Why? Because probably the person that you cohabitated with may not be the person that you would have wanted to get married to. You know, you may have chosen those people for different reasons. And so though that may be a factor that undermines it, having been married before, having children already in prior marriages, also marrying immediately after having a baby, all those things play a part in some of the factors that undermine marriage. And the family system perspective suggests that divorce happens because there are lots of competing demands over people's time, and then that makes it more stressful. So stress is a big cause of why people divorce. There are multiple risks of people getting divorced. The social exchange model, we've talked about that some, is a framework that emphasizes that people weigh the costs and benefits and rewards of staying married, or getting divorced before they decide to finalize a divorce. The accumulation of risk just talks about that the odds of divorce increase as more and more factors happen in your lives that make it, that make the marriage, that help the marriage to, not be as viable. And so this is just a chart which emphasizes that all these things play a part in how divorce, what plays out in divorce: mitigating circumstances, strains, alternatives, rewards. All these things are being decided, and that's the social exchange model. There are health consequences for divorce. They can affect the health of people going through it. There are a lot of clinical symptoms. It temporarily impairs the physical health of people, leading to higher than average episodes of illness, lower assessments of overall health, how you feel about your health, and increases in unhealthy behavior. However, when we think about really all of these numbers, some of that may have to do with some of the selection effects. So the spurious factor means that some factors that make two other factors appear to be associated with each other because the causes are happening at the same time, but it may also be the selection effect, right? So the fact that people are unhealthy, they may have been unhealthy before, which causes a divorce, right? So that's a perfect example. So it may not be caused by the divorce that people are unhealthy. They may have been unhealthy, and that's part of what's causing a divorce. And that's part of a way to think about spurious factors. When you think that the marriage, that health, that your health was different after the marriage, it may have been different. After the marriage, which caused the divorce, it may have already been that way. So although selection bias does play a part in the outcomes, it doesn't necessarily affect all the things that we see why people, when they get divorced, there are other factors which make it difficult: stressful life events, child-related difficulties, partner-related difficulties. All these things play a part in what is also associated with divorce. And then the quality of a marriage prior to divorce can also be a moderator of the divorce and health outcomes, right? So if you were in a terrible marriage before and it was your health outcomes and it affected your health outcomes and it was really stressful, then having a divorce will also feel the same way. So that is also a factor in how those health figures come out. And then when we look at how divorce affects kids, some kids still experience psychological distress. Others find that children adjust over time. Some of these studies are older, but what they found in general is that kids over time recover and are not, especially if the relationship was not a good relationship, children are better off, so they recover pretty well. There is, different mechanisms of, we think about how it affects kids depending on how distressed the parents are, how easy it is for parents to get along and jointly cooperate with taking care of the kids. Also, economic disadvantage may happen as a result of kids getting divorced. But what we see happening over time is that kids are most likely overwhelmingly are better off in when their parents have divorced, when it's an unhealthy marriage, and children do better when the parents have coping skills for what happens in their family relationships after a divorce. Thank you.